So today we are making French toast. Phenomenal French toast. I actually prefer using brioche. There's a couple different preferred breads for French toast. Challah is sort of the number one. So if you find a good challah bread, that makes great French toast. I prefer brioche. It's a slightly sweeter bread. And then in a pinch, you can also use just a thick cut, sturdy white bread. Any thick cut, sturdy white will work great. But like I said, brioche is slightly sweeter. It's what I prefer. So starting off, basically you're just cutting your slices. I prefer mine about an inch thick. Inch thick, you get a nice custard center with a crisp outside. So I start by cutting off the ends. Might as well square up the ends. Get them nice and straight. Spin this bad boy around. Square this end off. And then we're going to go ahead and cut this whole loaf right about an inch. Somewhere about 3/4 of an inch to an inch thick. Most people know this, but when you're cutting bread and you're using a good serrated edge bread knife, you actually don't want to put any pressure on the knife. You just want to slide the knife back and forth and let the teeth of the knife do the work. My wife, who I absolutely love, is extremely impatient and cannot seem to get that concept. She just takes the knife and mashes down the bread every time, and it pains me to watch. What are you doing? So when you're cutting bread, just let the knife do all the work. Okay, so we got our slices of bread. Now, first thing you want to do is actually dry the bread completely out. So what we would do is set our oven to 300. Get the oven up and going. I've already pre-warmed this one, just turning it back on. And so you want to put your bread in at 300 for about 15 minutes. And what that does is it pulls all the moisture out and allows it to soak up the French toast custard batter much better, gets all the way in, and just creates a much nicer French toast. So I'm going to go ahead and toss this in. Set our timer for 15 minutes. Take these ends, these leftover ends, I actually feed the kids. My kids love brioche bread. And so while they're sitting around waiting for Dad to make French toast, I will give them the ends as something to snack on. Okay, so we've got that going. Next, we're going to make our custard or our batter. So we're going to start with 3 eggs. So these 2 right here. There are some people that only use the egg yolks. The idea behind that is it gives you a less eggy flavor while still retaining the custard-like mixture that you're going for. I actually like that slight bit of egg flavor. That's just how I grew up with it. And so that's just sort of personal preference, like I said. It's not real strong. We're going to use a lot more milk than we use egg. So it's really not noticeable to me. But if you're not a fan of the eggy flavor of French toast, you can just use the yolks instead. Next, we're going to add 1.5 cups of room temperature milk. You don't want it cold because we're going to be adding melted butter, and if it's cold, then the butter solidifies back up and it just doesn't mix right. So room temperature milk. I also use, our household, we're not big into dairy milk. We hardly drink it, not big fans. So I use almond milk. Almond milk works perfectly fine. If you're lactose intolerant or non-dairy, feel free to use almond milk. Next, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. So the brown sugar adds just a little bit more sweetness. And who doesn't want sweet French toast? So we're going to go 3 tablespoons. Just like that. Put the lid back on the brown sugar. We'll use the brown sugar again when we make the berry compote. So we'll get that going. Half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Wouldn't be French toast without cinnamon, right? Half a teaspoon here. And then after I mix the batter and start dipping the French toast, a lot of times the French toast will stick to all the cinnamon floating on the top. And so I will sprinkle a little more cinnamon as I go on top of the French toast, just to give it that nice sort of cinnamon swirl look. You want to see the lines of cinnamon going through. It's just a presentation thing. Makes it look a little bit better. We got our cinnamon in, and now we need 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I prefer to use Kerrygold Irish butter. It's a grass-fed dairy butter. And grass-fed butter is actually really good for you. It's full of healthy fats. Yeah, if you get into that, your body can process healthy fats a lot better than most other foods. Gives you a nice little energy boost to start the day, things like that. So, like I said, I prefer to use Kerrygold grass-fed dairy butter. All right, we're going to give that just a few seconds to melt that down. When melting butter in the microwave, you want to make sure you keep an eye on it, because it can very quickly get extremely hot and end up just boiling over and making a giant mess in your microwave. So you really want to keep an eye on it. It should be about 15 seconds is all we need. All right, so we got our melted butter. We're going to add that to the mixture. And 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So my grandpa actually taught me this trick. Oops. Grandpa actually taught me this trick, is when you're cooking something sweet, just a little bit of salt adds a nice punch to it. So anytime you're cooking something sweet, add a little bit of salt on top. A good example of this is a lot of people, when they eat watermelon, they'll put salt on the watermelon. It makes the watermelon taste that much sweeter. So we're just going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Just a few grinds in here. Call that good. Then we'll mix this up. Put our butter back out of the way. Is everything coming through good? You guys seeing this all right? Hopefully. Okay, I'll give that a stir until the eggs are fully incorporated. And that gives us our nice custard batter for the French toast. All right, let's see what we've got. Got everything together. We've got our bread cooking in the oven. So we would have 8.5 minutes left on the bread. Once the bread is done toasting, like I said, about 15 minutes at 300 degrees, then you want to pull it out and let it cool down. So you set it aside for 5 minutes or so. I've actually already pre-toasted a batch. So I've got a batch here that is toasted this morning and cooled down and ready to go. So we will get started with that. And then for dipping, I used to try and dip in the bowl. Put the French toast in there, try and dip in that. It's about 20 seconds on each side. Dipping in the bowl is kind of a pain. You want something bigger and wider and easier to work with, because as you get to the bottom of the batter, it's really hard to use a bowl. So I actually will use a pie dish. Use a 9-inch round baking pie dish, and that just gives you a little bit more room to work with. Hey, Miss Kendry, how are you? How's your morning going so far? I've been up for a couple hours trying to get ready for this, make sure I don't screw this up. So, a couple cups of coffee and I'm good. Yeah, Daddy's Dolt. Yeah, no problem on that egg tip. It's like I said, it's up to your preference if you prefer the egg flavor or not, and I do. I've been doing it that way for a long time. Man, I love coffee. That is good stuff. All right, so we're going to get our pan warming up. I actually use cast iron. Been using cast iron for a lot of stuff for a very long time. I don't even own a standard pan. Every pan I own like this, they're all cast iron. I've got 6 or 7 of them in different sizes. So we'll give this a couple minutes to warm up. And we got our French toast ready. We got this. And then I'm going to go ahead and get started on the berry compote as well. So for the berry compote, we're going to melt 3 tablespoons of butter. So we'll pull our butter back out. Turn this bad boy onto medium as well. And we're just going to drop in about 3 tablespoons. And then in our French toast pan, every time you do a layer of French toast or do a batch in the pan, you're going to want to add more butter. It helps get that crispy outside while having that nice custard-like texture on the inside. And nobody wants mushy French toast. So I add about 1.5 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons of butter every time I put in a batch. So we'll get that butter in both pans going. That's started up. Let's see what we got. Tired, Ali woke you up so you'd make it. Thanks, Ali. I appreciate it. Does anything stick to cast iron? So, yes, it does. Things will stick to cast iron, especially when you first get it. There's actually a lot of details that go into that. So most cast iron nowadays, and Lodge is the most popular brand out there. It is a rough surface cast iron. So the more you use it, the more it smooths out, and then you build up that nice black patina over the outside, and then it becomes more nonstick. This one is actually a Wagner, I believe, and I got this off of eBay. This pan is probably about 70 or 80 years old, and back when they used to machine these, they actually used to smooth out the inside. So the new ones these days are rough. The ones that you used to be able to get 50, 60, 70 years ago were a very smooth finish, and they are much more non-stick than the ones you get today. Now, the ones you get today, you can get non-stick, like I said, by using them, smooths them out, using a spatula over and over again, smooths out the little bumps in the top, as well as you use it and don't scrub off that black patina. You never want to use soap and scrub everything off. You just want to use a damp cloth to clean cast iron. But as you do that, you'll build up that nice patina, and it creates the non-stick finish that you're looking for in cast iron. Hopefully that answers your question. If you've got more, let me know. Like I said, I've been using cast iron for quite a long time. I've got like 6 or 7 of these pans. I've got like 4 Dutch ovens. There's quite a bit. And when we go camping, we're a big camping family. I use cast iron for cooking just about everything while we're camping. Do the old school, put the coals underneath, coals on top. do all of that, and that's typically how I cook while we're camping. All right, let's go, baby. Get warmed up. This little one's going nice. Okay, so to the 3 tablespoons of butter for the berry compote, we're going to add a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Now, for those of you, if you're sort of new to cooking, brown sugar you actually pack down. So like flour, you want to lightly put in the measuring cup. You never want to pack flour down. But brown sugar, you want to actually pack into a solid sort of clump to get the correct measurement. So we'll scoop some of this out. And just going to press it down until we've got a 1/4 cup. And then we're going to go ahead and drop this in with our butter and let it start melting down. So on a wood spoon, give that a little bit of a stir, get the brown sugar starting to mix in with the butter. Then we're going to turn that down to medium-low, because really all you're going for with this is melting the sugar. Set my spoon, just to get my little handy-dandy spoon holder so we don't make a mess. Set that in there. Got our butter going on our French toast. So now we're going to go ahead and start dipping our French toast. So your French toast, if you're running about 1 inch thick, which is, like I said, what I shoot for, it's about 20 seconds on each side. So we're just going to drop these in, press them down a little bit, and give them about 20 seconds. And then after 20 or so, you sort of feel them. They're starting to get a little bit heavy, soaking up that batter. You go ahead and flip them over. And if you can see this in the camera, hopefully you can. Scoop this over maybe a little bit. Because the cinnamon starts to float on top, that's how you get your nice little cinnamon speckles or cinnamon swirls that you're going for. Which is why I said after a couple, probably after 4, the first 4, especially if I'm making a bigger batch, I'll add a little bit more cinnamon to the top just to give it that nice look that you're going for. So we'll give these another few seconds on this side. All right, and then we're going to set them on the wire rack and let them drain off a little bit. If you don't have a wire rack, no big deal. Put them in a cookie sheet. That works fine. I happen to have wire racks because I use them quite a bit. All right, so that is the timer for the other batch of bread that we put in. Give our sugar a stir for the compote. That's melting nicely. And then pull out our other batch of bread. All right, now I'm going to set this aside. We'll set that aside and let it cool, and that'll be the next batch. All right, so that was probably a little over 20 seconds on that side. We will flip these and let them soak. I generally keep a towel on my shoulder because I'm constantly washing my hands while I cook. Anytime I touch the egg, if I get ready to touch something else, I'll wash my hands. So do quite a bit there. Okay, so we got our 1/4 cup brown sugar melted. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. So grab a lemon, cut this bad boy in half. Okay, I'm just going to set these here on the stove. We'll pull out our other 2 slices of French toast. And drop in the last two. Okay, butter is fully melted. The butter and brown sugar fully melted together. Give it a little squeeze of the lemon. Let that sizzle up. A little bit more juice. Okay. And then I've got 3 cups of mixed berries. So I've got blackberries, raspberries, and blueberries. 3 cups. I've already rinsed these. Actually, I hadn't rinsed these. Let me rinse these real quick. And then we can drop them into that brown sugar mixture. Quick rinse. Shake off most of the water, and then we're going to drop the 3 cups of berries into our brown sugar. And you just want to leave these in for, I don't know, probably 5 minutes. About there. You don't want them to turn to mush. You actually just want them to soften up and start releasing the juices and flavor. If they turn completely to mush, it's just not as good. I like a little bit of texture to my berry compote. So we're going to turn that back up to medium and let that sit and start warming up those berries. Okay, so our French toast pan is nice and hot. We're going to give that a swirl, get the butter spread out all over everything. I'm going to flip these last 2. And I don't know if you guys can see that, but there is, if you're looking at these slices with the cinnamon on it, you can definitely see the cinnamon. And then these last ones, there's almost no cinnamon coloration there. So I'm going to just sprinkle a little cinnamon across the top because I like the way that looks when it's cooked. Okay, we got that. All right, we'll turn our heat down to medium-low. Give that another quick little swirl and drop in our first 2 slices of French toast. So here we go. And we're just going to let those cook for a couple minutes on each side. Part of the reason you want it on medium-low is you want in the middle to cook as well. So if you've got it too high, what you're going to get is the outside is going to crisp, you're going to get it nice and brown, and then the middle will be raw, and nobody wants raw egg in the middle. So you want it medium-low so that way you can get the middle nice and warmed up and cooked and get that sort of custard texture in the middle. Because like I said, if you've got it too high and by the time you cook the middle, then the outside's burnt. So we'll let that go. Those berries are really starting to release their juices. You can definitely smell them, especially those raspberries. The blueberries, you won't get much of the blueberry until they get warm enough to start cracking. They haven't gotten there yet. So your blueberries, once they get warm enough, the skins will start to crack and then they'll release the juice. And that's about the point that you want to take this off and let it cool down. Just turning this up a little bit, just almost right dead center at medium, just a little bit below that. Give that another minute or so on that side. Appreciate that, HOL Original. Appreciate the follow. Like I said, if you got any more questions on cast iron, definitely let me know. Let's take a look and see how our color is. Color is looking pretty good. So we want just a little bit longer. So what's everybody got planned for today? Anybody got any good plans? For me, this is about it for the day. This is the initial test stream for cooking, the first one, and giving it a shot. Normally I stream playing video games. World of Warcraft is sort of my hobby and addiction. And I cook a lot for the family. Got a wife and 2 kids. Cook most of the meals. And I thought, you know, if I've already got the equipment to start streaming, I might as well stream cooking, right? See if I can help anybody out there learn a little bit. And that is looking gorgeous. So hopefully you guys can see that. It's nice and brown on the edge. Slight crisp texture from the butter, which is what you're going for. You want a crispy outside with that nice gooey center. Actually forgot to pull these 2 off, which is no big deal. We'll just let them drain off. Okay, we got those. We are good to go there. And our berry compote should be just about done. I'm going to press a couple of these blueberries down. The blackberries are just starting to fall apart. And then raspberries being the softest, they tend to fall apart the easiest. And then we're going to kill the heat to this bad boy. Now, if you like a thicker compote, more like a syrup, you can also add a little cornstarch at this point. So if you add a little cornstarch, stir that up. It's a good thickener, doesn't add any flavor, doesn't change the flavors, but it will thicken it up more like a thick syrup. I like mine thin like this with the berries sitting on top of the French toast. Okay, so our oven, which was 300 degrees for drying the bread, we're going to go ahead and drop that down to 200 degrees for keeping the French toast warm. So especially if you're making a large batch, you know, six slices, 2 at a time isn't that big of a deal. But if you're making a large batch, you can put them back on the wire rack and then stick them in the oven, keep them at 200 degrees. That keeps them nice and warm and ready to go once you finish everything. So everybody can actually eat at one time instead of, you know, giving somebody 2 slices and then waiting a few minutes and then giving the next person 2 slices. So I'm going to grab one more pan with a wire rack. And get ready to drop these 2 into it. Let's check. That's looking pretty darn good. So you will start to get, once that center is fully cooking that custard, you will actually start to get, it will puff out a little bit, sort of balloon up in the center. And that's when you know the steam, because you've seared the outside, the steam is actually locked inside and it's steaming the center and giving you that nice creamy sort of French toast in the center. So once you see, like here, you can see this one starting to puff up. That's when you know that bad boy is actually good to go. Okay, so we're going to drop those 2 on there. Berry compote, we'll give that a stir. It's just cooking on residual heat from the cast iron at this point. And then, like I said earlier, you want to, every time you drop in a couple more slices of French toast, you just want to throw in another little pat of butter, just so you get that good browning action. swirl. All right, we're gonna drop in the next two. One and two. Set this egg mixture aside. We're done with it for now until we get back to those other 8 slices that we dried in the oven. Paper towel. Wipe up our mess as we go. And we're going to toss our 2 waiting slices into the 200-degree oven. And then basically that's it. We're just going to let that go. Cook the other 4 slices the same way we got the first 2. And then once we've got those, we can throw a little butter over the top, throw the compote on, and we are good to go. Oh, what do we got in chat? Hey, Bible's here. What's going on, Bible? I'm out camping, so I can't watch the whole... Dude, the fact that you're camping and you're watching the stream is freaking awesome, dude. I really appreciate that. That's super cool. No, just video games making me hungry. Appreciate that, Daddy's Dolt. It's really good. Never tried adding berries. I don't have any brioche. Can I just use Sara Lee? Yes. So you can use Sara Lee. Really what you want to look for if you go to the grocery store is you want to look for a nice firm, thick slice white bread. So most Sara Lee that I've seen, it's already pre-sliced. That's not an issue. You just want to make sure it's got a firm texture. So like your regular, sort of Wonder bread, that really light sandwich bread, that is actually too thin and too flimsy for French toast. You can do it. It's just not going to be the same. It works fine. It's not as good as a thicker, more structured toast. So you're looking for something along the lines of, I don't know, like something you would make Texas toast out of or something like that. Like I said, something that's thick, somewhere in that 3/4 to an inch thick cut, and then a semi-dense bread. Okay, let's take a peek at this. Okay, the one on this side looks pretty good. I don't know if you can see that. That looks great. This one, I think this one was a little bit thinner, had a little bit more custard in it. We're going to give that a flip as well. Another little tip and trick is when you're cooking in the pan, the center obviously tends to be hotter than the outside. So when I'm something like French toast, when I'm cooking them, I will always flip the outside edge and turn it in. So that way you're getting about the same amount of cooking or the same heat throughout the cooking process on both top and bottom side of the bread, left or right, however it's situated for you. But you're getting it the same thing throughout the entire slice. If you can see here, this edge here was actually on the inside of the pan. It's a little bit darker than the outside edge here, which is why I flipped it in, and then this side will get a little bit more heat on the other side of the bread. Okay, that's looking good. Our berries are looking good. So the other thing I thought about, instead of the berries, and I may do this at a later date because I actually really like the idea. One of the other ones that I will do is a bananas Foster French toast. So you do the same thing, you make a French toast, and then instead of berries, you're using bananas, rum, Myers rum, some banana liqueur, and lighting it on fire, the big flambe, 2-foot flame coming off of it. You can hit those flames with a little bit of cinnamon, and then the cinnamon will actually flash and sparkle in the air as it's flambeing. And it's really cool, great for presentation. So if you've got people over and you're making the French toast, the bananas Foster on the side, and then you put that on top of the French toast, that is like top-notch presentation. You will wow your guests every time. So I will probably do that in the future, go through making bananas Foster, show everybody how to do that. Like I said, mostly just because it looks super freaking cool. All right, you can see like this one, we're starting to get some puff in the center. which is exactly what you're looking for. Okay, looking good there. Going to pull our pan out of the oven and drop these 2 slices in there to keep them warm. And once again, just a little bit more butter. I've got a decent amount left in the pan. We haven't used it all up, but just add a little bit more to make sure we're getting the right browning and the right sort of crispy outside that you're looking for with a good French toast. French bread, so the thing with French bread is actually, there's no sweetness to a French bread. You can use French bread, but in that situation, I actually just prefer like a nice dense white bread. Okay, this one's soaked a little long. This one's a little bit, you can tell the bread's starting to come apart. So that's one of the problems. If you let it soak in the batter too long, you'll end up with too much batter in there, and then your bread will start to pull apart and it gets really sort of dense and soggy. This one on the left is good. The one on the right is borderline. It's not bad, but it's, that was the one that we were talking, going through everything else. I forgot about these for, instead of 20 seconds, they probably sat in there for a good minute, maybe a minute and a half or so, something like that. So this one will be good. It's not getting to the point where it's tearing and sort of splitting apart. If you were getting that, you could cook it. It's not, like I said, big presentation thing. It's not going to look as good. And you have to cook it a little bit longer to make sure all of the egg mixture in the center is cooked. All right, let's see what we got. Doesn't look like anybody told me what they're doing today. Come on, you guys, what are you up to today? I got lucky. The wife and the kids actually had to step out for a few. They're going to a charity event. My son he's 4 years old, he's in preschool, and his preschool, one of the former students is having some medical issues, and so they're going to a charity event to raise funds for that student. And so they're going, cheering on some friends who are doing a 5K, and then they should be back probably in about 20 minutes, about the time everything's done. Once again, I love coffee. My dad actually works for a huge coffee manufacturer back in California. I've been to their warehouse, and it's like the biggest warehouse you've ever seen, filled with bags of coffee the size of a Volkswagen. Went through, did the tour there, seen how they roast the coffee, how they select the blends, all of that stuff. One of the coolest experiences I've ever had. And my dad is lucky enough, he gets to work there every day, and he's a big coffee drinker like I am. And so I think it's a great job for him. And then one of the perks is he gets to bring home coffee every week. Like, he gets, I think, 2 pounds of free coffee every week, gets all the new trials and all the different flavors and all that. And so he doesn't drink that much coffee. So every once in a while, he'll send me a care package with 15 pounds of coffee or something, ship it over to me. I'm over in Colorado, so he'll ship it over here, and then I'm good to go on coffee for a while. If you've ever seen the Don Francisco's brand, I don't know if I can talk about brands on this. I think it's fine. If you've ever seen the Don Francisco's brand, that's actually one of the lines that the manufacturing plant makes where my dad works. Make tea, make something for breakfast, probably play some Terra afterwards as I do laundry for the week. Nice, nice. Yeah, laundry, I don't know if you've got kids, but once you've got kids, laundry is a nightmare. It honestly feels like that's all you do. We've got to the point where every morning when we get up, whatever clothes the family used the day before, we just wash those first thing in the morning, come home, dry them when you get home, and then put them away. Because if you end up like waiting a week, you got like 400 loads of laundry to get to, and it's a nightmare. You can see this one on the right. It's if you guys can see it, it's really starting to puff up in the middle. And this one had like a little hole in the bread, and you can see the steam really coming through that hole. That's when you know that center is getting cooked perfectly. Yeah, you can see it puff back up when you give it a little press. That is beautiful. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move the cutting board out of the way. Had a little bit of egg on it, so I don't want to put anything else on there until I get a chance to wash it. We'll pull out a plate, so that way we can actually plate these bad boys. So this would be a good example. I'll flip this one over. See, we're getting on the outside edge, which was here, we're starting to get really nice browning. But then on this inside edge, it's still fairly light and not cooked crispy like I like it. So we are going to go ahead and continue to cook on that side, but we're going to turn the bad boy around so that way we get nice even cooking. Okay, and this one here is fully puffed up and ready to go. So we're going to set that down and put just a little bit more butter across the top of this bad boy. And that is exactly what I look for in French toast. I know not everybody's tastes are the same, but that's exactly what I look for. And then you can see as it cools down, it starts, that puffy pillow, that starts shrinking a little bit. And like I said, that puff is when you really know the inside is cooking well. It will shrink down once you set it on the pan, let it cool. This bad boy is done. We're going to slide our cast iron off of the heat. Turn this burner off. And we'll bring over our berries. Now, one of the things, like if my kids were here right now and we were ready to go with the kids, one of the things I'll do is actually get a fine mesh strainer and put a little bit of powdered sugar on there, give it a little tap, gives you that nice powdered sugar look across the top. And then instead of syrup, because we made the compote, we're just going to get a little bit of this berry mixture and then some of the juices and put that across the top of the French toast. Okay, we'll slide this over, get it off the heat of that burner that was still fairly warm. And let me grab a fork and we'll cut these open and see how it looks. We'll bring this up to the bigger camera if you guys can see that better. But yeah, so we got 2 slices of French toast there, got our berry compote across the top. You can see from the coloration here that our berries really did break down well. Nice red color, and just that little bit of flavor that I got putting my finger in there, that is phenomenal. All right, so we're gonna cut this bad boy open here and see how we look on the inside. Hopefully you guys can see that. All right, so you can see, I think in this bottom camera maybe, you can see it's got nice custard center, fully cooked. It's not runny or anything like that. That is a gorgeous piece of French toast. We will give that a try. Make sure it's not poisoned or anything like that. That is phenomenal. So that is today's session of making French toast. If you guys have any questions, throw them up in chat. I'd love to take a look. That turned out perfect. I will also be posting this to YouTube. Once I get it up to YouTube, I'll put that out there. I'll do a little blast on the Twitch chat, let everybody know it's up on YouTube. Other than that, I think we're good to go. Anybody got any questions or anything they'd like to throw out? I'd love to provide a little advice or whatever you guys are looking for. I'm gonna grab another bite while that goes through. Throw one of these blueberries on top, if it will stay. Come on, buddy. Get in my belly. Oh yeah, look at that. That is a gorgeous piece of French toast. Awesome. Ollie, come on down, buddy. It's just a quick drive, right? You guys are pretty close. You're only like 4 or 5 states away. You could be here by tomorrow morning's breakfast. No problem. All right, you guys, I think that's it for today. If you liked it, please hit that follow button. I really appreciate it. That's how Twitch decides who's cool and who's not. And I someday want to be one of the cool kids. So yeah, if you could hit that follow button, I'd appreciate it. And then when I figure out when the next one is, I'll just do a blast out to all the followers and let you guys know. It'll probably be next weekend. I'm going to probably try and make this like a Sunday thing, Saturday or Sunday. And I'll let you guys know. Thank you very much and have a good day, you guys. Have a great Sunday.